You are now listening to Protecting Your Nest with board-certified family medicine and obesity medicine specialist Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com. Welcome to Protecting Your Nest podcast. Today, we have our second guest who, unlike my last guest, Dr. Feynman, is not a biochemist trained in metabolic disease, but a real patient who has seen the benefits of focusing on the root cause of disease, which has made a huge difference in how she feels and thinks. She brings a perspective that must be shared over and over again, and that's this perspective from through the lens of the patient. Patients are the reason why clinicians listening to this podcast are healing and trying to make the lives of their patients better. Helping others is how we fulfill our purpose. And I am so happy she's here with us and was able to think outside the box. In fact, that's exactly what I had to do. I had to rethink how I did things. I had to change from a doc who manages disease to one who helps patients heal. I had to embrace the World Health Organization's definition of health, which is health is a state of physical, mental, and social well-being in which disease and infirmity are absent. I had to recognize, as my guest has learned, that many diseases are related. Obesity, inflammation, insulin resistance, and even metabolic syndrome are all related. I had to relearn how to connect the dots. I learned this via experts like Dr. Jason Fong, who taught many of us about fasting, and a new kid on the block, Dr. Cecily Ann Clark Ganhart, who will be my guest on my next episode. And by the way, she calls herself the fasting doctor. I learned from Dr. Joan Iflin that many of my patients may have a processed food addiction, and they may need help that is not traditional to help them overcome that. I learned from the Fat Emperor, Ivor Cummings, who helped me have the courage to stop overprescribing statins and instead evaluate my patients' risk for heart disease via coronary artery calcium scores. I learned from Amy Berger, who helped me connect the dots that for some people, dementia is a reversible dietary disease. Professor Tim Noakes gave me the courage to apply what I've learned without fear, even though I'm in a traditional large health systems. I also learned from Gary Taubes, Nina Teichholz, Dr. Robert Lustig, Dr. Eric Westman, and many others who all helped me to think outside the box. My training as a board-certified family doctor and obesity doc helped me think outside the box. My ongoing training with the University of Western States in nutrition and functional medicine is helping me to think outside the box. The bottom line is that by doing this, it's helping me to connect the dots. Gone are the days when I just treat symptoms. Gone are the days when I just give my patients Band-Aids. Gone are the days when my patients leave my office feeling hopeless. Every single day, I am walking closer towards becoming a healer I've always dreamed of becoming. And now, using the NEST and ROPE acronym as my guide, I'm able to guide my patients and my own family past the roadblocks which have prevented most of us from achieving our ideal state. Now is the time that I introduce you to my patient who has agreed to share her story of recovery. And I really appreciate her doing that. Her name is Monique Travis. She is a 46-year-old who I saw just this past week during a visit, and we had a conversation. And she casually mentioned all the successes she was having, which kind of literally was over my head. And after I realized she had lost more weight and was having success, I thought this would be a great story for you guys to hear. So I want to welcome you, Monique, to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. And I really thank you for being here today. How are you doing today, Monique?
Thank you so much, Dr. Hampton. I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing great.
Well, I love that. And I think you are, because every time you come to my office, you have that positive energy. And I have to be honest, you don't get that from everybody. So I appreciate
Mhm.
it. It makes my day better. And I just want to make sure who you are is
Mhm.
understood by my listeners. So why don't you go ahead and just briefly just tell us a little bit about who you are, how long you've been seeing me, and just a little bit about who you are as a person.
Okay. Well, my name, as you said, my name is Monique. I am 46 years old. I am a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for 8 years now. Very busy registered nurse, especially during this COVID time. Um, I am the mother of a 22-year-old college senior. So very busy with that as well. Um, Recently, well, not recently, but throughout the years, I have been, experiencing different health ailments, and I didn't know, how to fix them, how to get better. I was having different symptoms and different things like that, and I didn't know how to, fix them, so to speak, so that I can, function. And like I said, you have been my doctor since I want to say 2010. So we were doing various things and treatments. Should I stop there or should I? Because I think I just messed up. I
No, 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 you're good. That's funny. So not at all. No, you're funny. Now, let me tell you what's awesome about yeah, it's hard to know like what to express. I'm gonna guide you a little bit during this process. And what's
think,
cool
okay.
about this is, I've only been doing podcasts for probably about you're my 11th episode, right? So the
Okay.
beauty of this process is that we learn and grow together. And I'm curious though. I was just thinking about learn. And speaking of that, we've been seeing each other for a while, and I'm
Yeah.
just curious. And I'm going to ask you about depression in a moment, but because I know that's one of the things you kind of got better with. But what changed? We've been
Mhm.
seeing each other for so what happened over the last year that
Mhm.
made things better for you?
Well, with this COVID pandemic, coronavirus pandemic, I'm
Hmm.
extremely concerned about having multiple health ailments and maybe being possibly infected with COVID-19. So at that point, that was a real big wake up call to start, you know, taking my health serious. And as a matter of fact, I actually did get sick in the beginning of January. And that kind of motivated me to start taking my health way serious than I had been in the past. And um, and so at that point, I just decided to start thinking about more natural healing regimens, and I started researching different things, and I just
That's
went forward
perfect.
from there.
That helps me. I was just curious, and because
Mhm.
I'm always, as clinicians, you're always trying to figure out, like, how do you best serve your patients and motivate them. So now, having said that, let me say this for the listeners in terms of data. For you, you were at 225 pounds
Yes,
and you got down to 191, which is incredible. That's a 34-pound weight loss over the
yes,
last 9 months or so.
yes.
And so you've seen some amazing improvements, obviously, in multiple health conditions. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring you to this conversation
Mhm.
is that you had a lot of health conditions that got better. And by the way, for the people listening, we're going to do a post podcast YouTube, Facebook live session. And during that time, we're going to talk about metabolic syndrome. And I'll probably have slides to explain that because I think people need to understand what metabolic syndrome is. So let's think about these conditions that you got better from. Let's
Okay,
start with depression. So what I want you to do for the conditions that got better, which again was the spark that made me want to talk to you,
okay,
what was your life like with this symptom, and what happened once you started? And for you, it ended up being kind of a low carb diet, and it was eating. I mean, exercise. And were you doing intermittent fasting as well?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so all three. So let's talk about what happened with depression. And then after you comment on that, whatever I can add, I'll add.
Yes, well, with my depression, I've been suffering from that for years and really wasn't aware that it was actually depression. I was having I was always fatigued, my energy was always low. I didn't have any desire to go anywhere or do anything. I didn't have any motivation sometimes to even get out the bed. I would eat half a gallon of ice cream in 2 sittings. I would bake a cake and eat the whole cake. Just whatever I could do to temporarily feel better, that's what I was doing. And that became the form of sweets. But energy wise, I didn't have any motivation to do anything. I didn't want to go to the grocery store. I didn't want to go out anywhere. I kind of withdrew from family and friends. And yeah, it was kind of rough. And I just thought that that's what my life would be like for the rest of my life. I just never thought it could get any better because I never saw it getting any better. I just thought that that's how I would just be
It's
forever.
just normal.
Yeah,
Wow.
thought that was normal.
And then what happened once you got the, motivation to do the lifestyle changes? What happened?
What happened? It started kind of gradually. One day I just woke up and I was thinking, okay, I feel better today, and I was able to get up. I started walking in the morning and walking in the evening. I would walk with some friends from around my house. We would go walking at the high school track, and then we would also do it that evening. And so after a while, it got to the point where when I would get up in the morning, I didn't feel fatigued. I didn't feel achy. I felt energized. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, well maybe I'm having a good day today. And then the next day it was the same thing, and then the day after that. And so and all of a sudden I'm thinking, okay, I'm feeling good every day. What's going on? And I wasn't used to feeling like that. And I noticed that when I went to the grocery store, I would always find a parking spot really close to the door. One day I said, oh, well, I don't have to do that anymore. I can actually walk. I can park a little further and walk. I noticed my energy level was much better. And I just couldn't believe it. So sometimes even now it still surprises me that I have as much energy and
Yeah.
able to do things like something as simple as walk inside the grocery store without bending over from my back hurting, or just getting out the bed without rolling over first to get up. I mean, sometimes it still surprises me that I'm able to do that so well. When prior to this, prior to this, my life was just, resulted, it just was that. So,
Wow. That's
yeah.
beautiful. I don't have your chart in front of me. And again, I appreciate you sharing personal stories to inspire others. But were you taking medicine during this
Well,
time?
I was prescribed Lexapro.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried originally I was told that it would take at least 4 weeks for the medication to take an effect. I took one tablet and I had a really bad side effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I said,
Okay.
and then I tried another one and I had the same exact side effect.
Yeah.
And that's when we decided that maybe I'm not a good candidate for
Right. That's right.
I have to
And
figure something else out.
wow. Well, that's interesting. And again, for those who are listening who take medicine and they work for you, absolutely, you can use lifestyle to augment the medicine and to make it better.
Mhm.
There could be additive benefits, but I think for some of us as clinicians, we're taught to do lifestyle first. But we don't do lifestyle first. And when I start thinking outside the box, I force myself to do lifestyle first. Now, so having said that, what I'll say, and I'm so happy and excited for you because when you fix your depression and your mood, then it affects a ton of people all around you. So I'm just happy you're able to do that. So let me let me say a couple of things that I want you to be thinking about as listeners and for you. Depression is not a Lexapro deficiency. It's not a Zoloft deficiency. It's not a Prozac deficiency. It's not. We have to think about the root cause of what's the root cause of why you were depressed, right? So for some people, it's lack of exercise, and maybe that was the key. Maybe it was the dietary situation. Some people have gluten uh, problems, and they can't tolerate gluten. That causes inflammation, which can lead to depression. Some people have a low thyroid. Some people take the PPIs, those proton pump inhibitors, which inhibit, if you don't have acid in your stomach, you can't absorb B12. And then you become B12 deficient, and that can lead to depression. Some people have a vitamin D deficiency. We live in Chicago. We call it Chi-Town. And it's cold here. It's going to be cold very soon. And sometimes the lack of sun can make you depressed. The cold weather can make you depressed. Mercury poisoning can make you depressed. In other words, the root cause of depression is more important than saying that a person has a Lexapro deficiency. Thankfully for your body, you didn't want any of those drugs in the first place. And again, for those who need them, that's great. So, and I learned that during my podcast with Amy Berger, who wrote the Alzheimer's Antidote, is that there was a connection between excessive glucose consumption and dementia. But we also learned that those same ketones that helped improve the dementia patients by eating a low-carb, high-fat diet can also improve the nervous system in general, and thus will help those who have problems with depression. So it's really great to hear all of this, and now we know that exercise is helpful. So one of the things you've been doing, in fact, when I called you this morning to confirm our appointment to talk today, you were actually exercising at that moment. You were taking a walk, right?
Yes, I walked 2.5 miles this morning. Yes.
That's crazy. Oof, I don't know what to tell you. So let me tell you a couple of really quick things about exercise. Exercise helps combat the damaging effects of cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. So it makes it possible for people who have problems with chronic stress to have less impact on their body. So that's good stuff. It also increases serotonin. And guess what? Those drugs that you were given, they all try to increase serotonin. Well, guess what? Exercise increase serotonin naturally, and it's helpful to other neurotransmitters. Serotonin is like a neurotransmitter. It also protects the hippocampus, that's a part of the brain, from shrinking. And when you don't let that shrink, you protect yourself from depression and anxiety. And there are a couple of studies. There was a study called the SMILE study, ironically, at Duke University. That's where Dr. Eric Westman is. He's a very famous low-carb guy that most of the listeners are probably aware of. And with that study, they found that exercise was just as effective in combating depression as the medicines without those side effects. And then another study had 33,000 healthy subjects in Norway who exercised for only an hour a week, right? And they decreased their depression from occurring 44%. And just exercising an hour, that's literally like 15 to 20 minutes 3 times a week. And that was called the Hunt study for those who want to look that up. So I just wanted to give a little data behind why you may have gotten that benefit and some studies to support it. Now I want to go to the next medical condition, and I want to hear a little bit of a before and after. And the next is going to be GERD, or gastroesophageal reflux disease. Tell me a little bit about what life was before and after you made these lifestyle changes.
Okay. With the GERD?
Yeah, that reflux, that heartburn.
Okay. Well, with that, I couldn't sleep. At night, I would get it. It would be terrible. I couldn't sleep. I would have random attacks at night, meaning that it felt like a lot of pressure was in my chest. And this had no relation to whatever I ate that day. Because some days I may not have eaten at all and I would still have it. So it was extremely bad. And now I haven't had to use the medication, and I've been fine ever since. Ever since I started exercising and changing my diet, I haven't had those attacks anymore.
That's crazy.
And I used to
So
get
it
them,
affected you. Yeah, go ahead.
and I used to get the attacks quite frequently, maybe 3 times a week.
That's just crazy. And I think unless people suffer from these conditions, they don't fully understand how it can impact your life. Not being able to sleep at night is stressful. And then that leads to cortisol and all the bad things that we're talking about. So everything is connected, and the health of your tummy is really important. So it sounds like now we've gotten depression out the way and we've gotten reflux out the way. How long has that been much better for you? Has it been months, weeks?
It's been much better. I want to say about 3 months.
Okay, excellent. So
Yes.
I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but GERD, or gastroesophageal reflux, is not a proton pump inhibitor deficiency. And for those who don't know, that's the omeprazoles and Nexiums and pantoprazoles. If it's got a zol at the end, it's a proton pump inhibitor. And what it does is tell the acid pump to just shut it down. It tells your body to stop making acid. But GERD is not a proton pumper inhibitor deficiency. It's not a acid problem either, right? Now you may think, Doc, that doesn't make sense. Why would I take a medicine for acid if it's not an acid problem, right? Does that make you a little curious, Monique?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So the stomach was designed to handle high acid levels. I mean, think about it. If you eat a steak, I had a steak last night. It has to dissolve a steak. You have some mechanical digestion in your mouth. There's no digestion of the steak in your mouth. You only break it down by chewing. There's no like enzymes in your mouth that break down steak. It does it in other types, like carbs and things like that, but not for protein. So when it gets into the stomach has a big job. So the pH in the stomach has to be low. So if you think about the pH scale, we learned this in medical school, it's from 1 to 14, 1 being very acidic and 14 being more basic. The stomach's pH is between 1 and 3, right? And the stomach can handle that. The stomach is like, I'm good with the acid because I was made to handle the acid. But there is a problem. If that acid goes where it shouldn't go, then you can have a problem. And that place where it goes that causes your symptoms is the esophagus, or the lower part of the throat, right? So just imagine if that acid gets into the throat, that's going to be a big problem, right? But there's something that keeps that from happening, and it's called the lower esophageal sphincter. And it's a little ring between your esophagus and your stomach. And and what happens is it opens up to let the food come through, and it closes down when the food is past that point. So the acid from the stomach won't come back up. For some people, that little esophageal sphincter actually is not working properly, or even better, there's other factors that keep it open. And I have a clue for you, Monique. It's possible that the fact that you lost weight in your belly was the reason why your reflux got better. And I'm going to tell you how I want you to use your imagination, and the people listening, use your imagination.
Okay.
Think of your stomach as a balloon, right?
Yes.
And imagine at the top of that balloon is where your esophagus connects to it, right? And between those two things, you have that lower esophageal sphincter. Imagine if I take your balloon and just put pressure on it. What's going to happen to that balloon? On either end, it's going to get a little bigger, right?
Exactly.
So can you visualize how that esophageal sphincter may open up a little bit when that happens?
Yes.
That's exactly what happens to many people who have abdominal adiposity, if I want to sound like a doctor here. When you have a lot of belly fat, it puts pressure on your stomach. And therefore, when you take that pressure away, the reflux goes away. Now, again, there's many reasons why people have issues, but for what I found is that almost all my patients who lose weight in their belly, their reflux goes away. So in other words, I'm going back to what I said earlier. You don't have a proton pump inhibitor deficiency. You don't have an acid problem. What you have a problem with is that you're putting too much pressure on your stomach, which is then making that lower esophageal sphincter stretch out and allow acid to go into the wrong place. So this is what this Protecting the Nest podcast is all about, is as I learn and grow, as I experience through my patients and through my training, how to think about these things differently, then we can stop taking medicines that are not really helping us. In fact, they found in studies that a lot of people who take those proton pump inhibitors actually get sicker. They feel better for a while, and then it actually makes it worse. So I just wanted to say that out loud. So enough of me talking. Let's go to the next thing that caught my attention during our last conversation. That was migraine headaches. So I want you to tell me, how long have you had migraines, how often you were having migraines, and what's happened, since things got better.
Yes. I first noticed the headaches. They started about in 2017, and I would have them every day, just bad headaches every day. And I was alternating between Tylenol and ibuprofen. Nothing was working. I was also taking the medication with the pseudoephedrine, or the allergy sinus medication with pseudoephedrine, thinking that maybe that would help. Now, that would provide some relief sometimes, but the headaches would still come every day. There would be periods where they would, lessen up a little bit, but I was suffering with them almost daily. But once I started exercising and changing my diet again, they came less frequently until the point where I don't really get them at all. And if I do feel a slight headache coming on now, I could just drink some water and just start walking, and it'll go away. Or it won't intensify. It'll just be just a little slight nagging headache, but it won't ever progress to the point that they used to progress to. So that's been a tremendous.
That seems huge. I never had problems with migraines, but I'm imagining when I think about my patients and talk to them, how incapacitating that could be. So I know you said since 2017,
Yes.
that's 3 years, you're a nurse. How did you function with these migraines? I don't even know how you're able to do your job, because being a nurse is very stressful at times.
It is. It was terrible. I would use whatever I could. I would use ice packs. I would use frozen vegetables out the refrigerator, out the freezer, whatever I could to try to get some relief. Some days I did have to leave work early because they progressed to the point where I was nauseated, couldn't see, was having dizzy spells. It was terrible. And then some days, because they were so bad, you're trying to take anything to get some relief. So some days I may have taken a little bit too much medication, and it still didn't relieve the headaches. Yeah, it was terrible. The only thing I could do was put ice packs on my head and lay down in a dark room, go to sleep.
Did it affect the relationships at home? Because sometimes when you feel horrible, you can't be present for your family. How did it affect your relationships?
Yeah, I just couldn't do anything but withdraw and lay down and put ice packs on my head. And, sometimes, people couldn't understand exactly how bad you feel. It affected it greatly because I wasn't able to, maybe cook dinner or, something that I had promised someone that I could do, that I was going to do. And I would have to, turn down invitations that I had previously, told them I was coming, but could do. I felt terrible at times.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just also happy. I just can't imagine going from, what you've had so far. You've described your depression. That's incapacitating for some people. Heartburn is certainly a pain, and then, of course, migraines are definitely incapacitating. Those three things alone are a game changer. And again, that's what caught my attention, because you said it so casually. Yeah, I'm doing better. And I was like, doing better? It sounds like you won the lottery. So, so let me just make a few comments about migraines. And so many people people wouldn't know this, but it's the third most prevalent illness in the world. Migraines. It doesn't kill people like heart disease, but it's the third most prevalent. And in America, for those who are not in America, it's about 35 million people who have to deal with that. So, but if you think, I don't know what the number is for the world, but imagine the number of people who would benefit from knowing that you can actually treat your migraines naturally. I do have a guest coming to the next episode, Dr. Christine Bear. She actually, Monique, was a Chicago doc who believes in this low-carb way of life, and she was stolen away from us, and now she's going to be in San Diego doing her thing with another great doc down there. She'll be my next guest, but I bring her up to say that she actually was able to cure her migraines using a keto diet or a low-carb diet as well. So the reason why I think these keto diets work, and we're learning a lot about them, is because, keto, low-carb reduces inflammation. That includes what's going on in your brain. And it really helps to reduce stress. And I mentioned already that serotonin is important. And this way of eating really does help with serotonin as well. So it actually is like a natural, drug, and it does a lot of great stuff. And it's really important when people think about how to treat this, they just think about the nest. We're talking about nutrition today, so that's the N. And you're doing intermittent fasting. That's probably the most anti-inflammatory thing you can do, is stop eating for a while. Exercise, stress reduction, sleep, and obviously thinking positively. So if we get that inflammatory food out of our life, like the refined sugars, the refined grains, the artificial anything. And some people take magnesium. I always tell my patients when they struggle with this, consider magnesium, and avoid the triggers. If there's things that trigger headaches, stay away from those things. So again, we're rocking and rolling. The thing that I want you to talk a little bit about next, and of course I know these things because you're my patient, is Sjogren's syndrome. And I know that we had some concerns about how you were feeling. So I want you to tell the listeners about this. What do you know about Sjogren's syndrome? How long, what were you feeling that made us even look into that? And then what's been going on with your treatment and lack of treatment? Just tell the audience a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, I started getting concerned about, some type of autoimmune issues. Again, I think maybe around 2017, 2016, somewhere around there. Could have been earlier, but my first symptom that I was having were my hands. And because I'm a nurse, I work with my hands. My fingers would swell up and my fingers were hurt. My fingers would hurt every day. And then it progressed to my wrist and then my ankle and my knees and my hip and my back it's like every joint was hurting. And they progressively gotten worse. And I was thinking, oh no, what's going on? So that's what led me to, talk to you about and get tested for it. And ultimately got referred to a rheumatologist, and he actually diagnosed me with Sjogren's and prescribed me medication recently. And I think it was June. And right before I had an appointment with you. And so at that time I said, okay. And I know you talked to me about how serious this was and how serious, with autoimmune deficiency, how serious that inflammation affects all of that. So we discussed, certain things. And I said, well, at this point, I have nothing to lose. So yeah, I have nothing to lose because I didn't want to lose. Dependent on medication all of my life as a result of this, nor did I want the condition to get to worsen. And that's when I said, okay, I have to really, make a strong effort to try to improve my life. And that's when the exercising started. And that's when the intermittent fasting and the low carbs. And again, because I didn't realize it day to day that it was actually helping. It was just all of a sudden I realized I was able to walk and I didn't have pain. Even when I was walking, because at first I was thinking I could never walk, especially 1 mile or 2 miles. I couldn't even walk from one room to the next without getting out of breath. So
Wow.
when I found myself walking around the track with, our neighborhood friends, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm actually doing this, like, and I'm not passed out, I'm not laid out somewhere. And I couldn't believe I could actually do it without, being achy. And I just assumed that once I was done walking, that I was going to be in pain for days. No, I didn't experience any adverse effects from walking. And as a matter of fact, I didn't have any pains at all. And then, like I said, it was a gradual thing where I noticed that I was able to walk, I was able to move my hands again, and the aches and pains that I was complaining about, which kind of halted my bedside nursing career, I didn't have anymore at all. I didn't have the back pains, the shoulder pains, the elbows, the knees. They just would disappear.
What do you mean it halted your bedside nursing career? Did you make changes in your career because of
Yes.
this?
I was a med surge nurse, and also I was a dialysis nurse. And I would have extremely bad leg swelling, ankle pain, and knee pain. And I couldn't walk down the hallway. I had got knee braces, and it still wouldn't work. I was taking alternating between ibuprofen and naproxen for the pains in my knees every day. I was a dialysis nurse as well, because I thought that would be less stress on my body physically, but no, it was not. It was equally as bad. I was having neck spasms, back spasms. I couldn't function physically at all. I couldn't move the patient's beds. I couldn't maneuver around in the dialysis unit. And eventually, I started working in clinic, and then I went to working from home. But it was because physically I wasn't able to do that type of work anymore.
Right, right. At this very young age.
Yes.
It's
And I couldn't
crazy.
believe that. And again, I just assumed that, okay, this is just what life is like now. I never thought that it could get better or that it would get better.
Right. And you mentioned ibuprofen, and I know that it's a great anti-inflammatory, but it's probably not good for the reflux either. So that's a slope that you probably didn't want to be on for long. It's,
It's not. And then actually I wasn't let's see, last year, um, I think last June, they found
mhm.
two ulcers as well. So I definitely,
Oh, Lord.
yeah, I actually had overdone it with the,
Right, right. There you was. That's why I brought it up. I couldn't remember that. But what
yes.
about, yeah, I mean, that's insane. So
Mhm.
you have this Sjogren's, and for those who are not familiar, it's spelled Sjogren. Um, and that's a scary thing to hear
Yes.
because even with you being a nurse, you don't want to hear anything that says autoimmune.
Yes.
I'm curious what the rheumatologist recommended. Didn't they recommend medicine?
Yes. He
What they recommend?
recommended the I can't pronounce it, the hydroxy.
Oh, hydroxychloroquine. Yeah,
Yes.
chloroquine,
Yes.
Plaquenil. Okay.
Yes.
And for those who are listening, when you have a condition like this, we tend to recommend things that decrease inflammation, things that, kind of tell your immune system to settle down. But things like steroids and Plaquenil, they have horrible side effects. So now, when you were recommended that, did you take it or no?
I actually did not. I was
Mm-hmm.
concerned about the side effects. I actually did not take it, but
Mm-hmm.
that I was going to just monitor my symptoms. I didn't
Okay.
know that the exercising and all that would work so soon for me.
Right, right.
It
How
did.
long did it take? You said it was soon. How long did it take before you felt better?
Before I started noticing that,
Mm-hmm.
in a couple of weeks.
That's insane.
Yeah,
I
just
mean,
a
usually the
couple of
first
weeks.
week or two of exercise is like painful, but then your body adapts. But to have such a serious diagnosis given to you, and yet
Mhm.
you benefited. That's really a testimony that
Yeah.
people needed to hear. So I am just amazed. This is the one diagnosis where I had to do a little research because I'm not a rheumatologist. I had to remind myself about some of the nuances. And what I found is that, yes, of course, it's an autoimmune disease. And by the way, Monique, you won't believe this, but a lot of the people who are carnivores, probably one of the best diets for autoimmune disease is the carnivore diet. You know, who'd have thought, right? Eating meat. So I just wanted to say that out loud so my listeners will hear that. But anyway, it is more typical in females, and your immune cells attack what are called exocrine glands, and those are the salivary and the lacrimal glands. So salivary, you think about, your saliva, and the lacrimal, you think about your tears. And then what happens is they don't really know why, but they know it's probably some genetic factors. But if it's an environmental factor, which I always think most things are, they think maybe there's an infection in the exocrine glands, and that leads to damage in those glands that make, secretions. And when they're damaged, then there's they get exposed to the immune cells, which then, because if you have a damaged cell, your body's like, something's wrong with it, so let's attack it. And so basically your immune system starts to see them as foreign. So they get infected, they get damaged in the immune system, says something's wrong with that, get rid of that. Then your body produces the ANA, anti-nuclear antibodies. So when we did our little initial test for ANA, your body produced the ANA as a way of saying trouble's here and we're making antibodies. There's two types. There's an anti-SSA and an anti-SSB.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably just did the initial, and then the rheumatologist was able to identify the next level. And I think the lab will automatically search for other things once the first test is positive. And what happens is these antibodies will finally reach the glands. They'll start to cause inflammation, rather it's the salivary gland or lacrimal gland. And then what happens, and a lot of people with this, I don't know if you had this, but a lot of people with this condition, they have these fibroblasts, and fibroblasts are not cells that secrete fluid like secretory cells.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you replace these secretory cells with the fibroblasts, what happens is you stop making the saliva and you stop making the tears. So a lot of people with this condition have dryness in various parts of their body. They also can get increased risk for GERD, believe it or not. But I don't know if you had any of those dryness symptoms. Did you have any of those?
Not that I was really aware.
Yeah, not aware. Okay. But other people have joint pain, swelling, stiffness, fatigue.
Yes.
And it sounds like you had that spectrum of things. And of course, they treat it with the anti-inflammatories. But what I have learned is that, again, I mentioned earlier that a diet where you do intermittent fasting, that's anti-inflammatory. A diet where you do low carb, that's anti-inflammatory. So, and then if you do exercise that's not intense, like what you're doing, walking and things like that, that's anti-inflammatory. So it's like the trifecta. We're at the racetrack and we've gotten the trifecta. So that's really kind of cool that you had these like great benefits, not realizing all of these things would get better. So we've talked about Sjogren's, we've talked about migraines, we talked about heartburn and reflux, and we've talked about depression. And that's a lot of bang for the buck. The other thing I want to mention, which is the most obvious, is weight. So I just want you to share with the audience, how long have you been struggling with weight issues? And did you have any obvious changes in terms of perception and other things after you lost these 34 pounds?
I've been struggling with weight not that long. I believe my weight issues came as a result of the depression, because I never really struggled with weight at all until a few years ago, maybe around right after I graduated nursing school. I noticed that
Yeah.
yeah, I weighed, nothing fit, and I just, oh my gosh, I had really poor self body image. So I'm thinking, oh no, what's going on here? And it just spiraled out of control. And
Yeah.
yes.
I can believe that. A lot of people
Mhm.
struggle after medical school
Mhm.
during they because you're studying, right? You're just hitting the books. It's stressful. You don't get as much sleep. Nursing school is hard
It
for
is.
anybody that thinks you got to go to medical school to struggle. No, nursing
Mhm.
school is brutal, and I encourage you to do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying a lot of these professions, when you earn that degree, you really earn it, but it's stressful. So it doesn't surprise me. And of course, everything we've talked about so far are beneficial, should I say, for a person who wants to lose weight. So that's our fifth. So I'm gonna end it right there. I don't need to add any more diagnoses, but
Okay.
but what's awesome about this is that um, the medicine that you were gonna take, the Plaquenil, you never took, and yet you got better. So I'm not suggesting that you'll never have to take medicine. Hopefully you won't. But if you continue down this path, I think there's a path for you where you can minimize the need for medicines, at the minimum, delay it.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I think you're giving your body a chance uh to recover. And so I guess the question I have for you, did you was it really it sounds like from listening to you that there were certain things that were occurring in your life that made you decide to make a move. It wasn't so it's not that did you know what to do? I mean, the things that you did you know that you need to do these things and didn't do it? Or were you just looking for motivation through all of these diagnoses that started sneaking up on you?
So I actually knew what to do. I just didn't do it. Because you always educated me every visit, and I always knew what to do. I just wasn't motivated to do it. I don't know why. And I probably shouldn't say that.
No, no, I
It's the
think it's valuable.
truth.
Yeah. And I
Yes.
think you said something key. And I want
Mhm.
any clinician listening to me, don't
Yes.
ever say to yourself, I don't have time to talk about lifestyle.
Yeah.
What she just said was
Mhm.
every visit, I
Yes.
would hit her with lifestyle. And I did it in
Yes.
a very nice way. I hope you never felt disrespected
No,
or
ever.
I just said, listen, this is the path. And you just had to kind of have your light bulb moment. So I'm glad you said it because that's how, I mean, I'm always trying to be careful about how I message this, but I do know that if I just give people medicines, they won't heal. So, so having said that, if you had to give advice, to someone who is on the fence like you were, and you wanted them to be inspired, what any advice you would give somebody that's listening that's kind of like, I can get to that later? What would you say to them?
I would show them my results, because that's what I found, even with family, that they didn't necessarily listen to me until I physically showed them before and after. And the
Hmm.
after was not that long of a time. It was before meaning Memorial Day, and the after was the 4th of July. So it
Wow.
came pretty quickly. And when I showed
Yep.
them the results, they were thinking, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like what? Who is that person? Right.
Yeah, I had to show them the results. And once I showed them the results, that's when they wanted to jump on board as well. Um,
Cool.
yeah, and it doesn't take a long time, because again, I was kind of I didn't do it either because I was thinking, oh, it's gonna take too long. I'm not gonna see anything. It's just gonna be, I just wasn't motivated to do it until I actually saw results for myself. I think um someone just decided to take a picture of me after, and that's when I was able to see it, because I couldn't see it every day looking in the mirror. I didn't know
Right.
the difference. I didn't know that I had lost weight. I didn't know that. I know I felt better, but I didn't
Hmm.
or see the change until I saw a picture. And
Hmm.
that's when I got really excited. I said, "Oh my gosh, I can actually tell a difference in this short period."
That's right. Wow. That's amazing. Anybody in your family, that provided support in a way that was beyond the norm? Because some people, they they love you, but they don't necessarily understand the journey you're on. Did you have any particular people that helped you along your way?
It was mostly friends. Um,
Mhm.
Mostly friends that were already, physically fit and were already you're into a real healthy lifestyle. They're the ones that really kind of really pushed me and motivated me um, to get out and exercise and actually, be committed to a lifestyle change as far as my diet and
That's cool. And it's nice when it's family, but it
yeah,
doesn't really matter where it comes from, right? I mean, as long
exactly.
as you get
Yeah.
it, and we all need support. Like,
Yes.
you support me, I support you. We all kind of
Absolutely.
support each other, and I appreciate hearing it from that
Mhm,
perspective. Anything
mhm.
that you would do differently at this point, based on your experiences? Do you feel pretty? Would you do it all the same way, or would you do anything differently or faster?
I would be a little bit more consistent. I would, plan a little better, plan my meals a little better, and be a little bit more consistent.
Okay, that
Yeah, I would be
sounds
more
any
consistent with it. Yes, and plan it out
plan it out. It's
because
yeah, and yeah. Go ahead. Tell me what your thoughts are because I have some thoughts on that.
yeah, I was gonna say because it happened so fast that I didn't, and I didn't realize that it would actually help. That once I realized it, I was thinking, "Oh wow, if I had just done it right the first time, maybe I could be a little further." So
Right.
that's
That's
what,
right. That's right.
yeah, that's what I think I should have.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. Like,
Yeah.
I'm literally gonna throw something in the oven in a few minutes, and it's just I just throw it in the oven, cover it, and walk away. It's not most of the time cooking is not that hard. You just have to remember to thaw something out if you needed to do that. Other than that, it's pretty simple. And anything about this journey that was particularly hard? Like what part of was it the fasting? Was it the low carb? Was it the exercise? Anything that was harder than you expected or easier than you expected?
Yeah, the exercising was much easier than I expected because I've never walked ever. Maybe back in high school 30 years ago, but I've never walked the track or walked 2 miles, 3 miles, any of that. And now I'm walking 6 miles a day. I would have never thought that I would do that as easy as I'm doing it because I've never done that. Um, yeah, so that was the part that's much easier than what I expected. Even with the diet, getting rid of a lot of the sweets. I was a sweetaholic, and once I started exercising and losing weight, I just completely lost the taste for them. I would be the type of person that would buy a pack of donuts and eat the whole pack of donuts. I mean, and now I don't even crave them at all. I don't crave sweets. I don't have the taste for them. Even if it for one day I might buy one thinking, oh, maybe just one might hurt. I might have a cheat day. And I find that I buy it, take one bite of it, and just get kind of disgusted. I don't even want to eat it.
Wow.
It doesn't taste the same. So I don't even have the same taste, but my taste buds change. So I don't even like it. So
That's pretty amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was a good part for me because I was entirely just into sweets. I would wake up eating sweets, go to bed eating sweets. So that was a very big change for me.
Yeah. Sweetaholic.
Yes.
Sweetaholic. That's cool.
Yes.
Yeah. That's funny. Do
Yeah.
you have any, I know we talk about resources, but did you use any apps or anything to count carbs? What did you do to make that
Yes.
happen?
I use the app, the Diet Doctor, that carb manager app.
Yes. Yes.
And because I think you had given me that with the diet.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely recommend that a lot. Yeah.
And so
I'm
that,
actually
mhm,
excited about working with the diet doctor. In fact,
mhm.
just for those who are listening, I'm glad you brought that up. I had forgotten that I'm one of the low carb experts, but I shared with them that I would love to have some recipes to share with patients, etc. So we're gonna on my personal website, we're gonna have which should be out. I keep saying it's gonna be out, but hopefully by the time this episode comes out, it'll be ready at drtonyhampton.com, and we're gonna start providing resources, but we're also gonna write articles, and we may write one where we feature our friend who we're talking to today. So kind of look out for that, and I'll make sure to share that on social media once it's out there. And if it's out sooner than later, we'll link it in the show notes once it's available. So one more question I think is helpful in terms of the big picture. If you got in front of a group of physicians or a healthcare system, and and you were trying to help them to reach communities of color, maybe disadvantaged communities. Is there something that we need to think about to help reach people just from a low carb, high fat perspective? Because sometimes when I look in the world of low carb, I don't see a lot of minority representation and a lot of people. Is there something we're missing here? Any thoughts on how to make that better?
Yes, I think that what's missing is because people don't understand the connection or the correlation between the diet and their health. They don't understand the correlation at all. And I think that a little bit more education about that and about the direct correlation between the two is really helpful, because without that, it's just they're not gonna, people are not gonna really understand how beneficial it is, to do the low carb diet and how it's gonna improve their health. With
Yeah, it's almost like what you did with your
yeah.
family, right? It's like I got to
Yes.
show you
Yeah.
and connect the dots. I
Mhm.
mean, your story is amazing because you connected. These are some pretty, I mean, migraines and GERD
Yes.
and the depression, and of course the Sjogren's, and obviously the obesity itself. All of those are things people are struggling with, and you knocked all of them out the park. And I'm so happy you were able to do that. And I guess I always kind of ask people this question at the end, and that's the question about the nest and a rope. And as you know, nutrition, exercise, less stress, more sleep, how we think, avoiding trauma, relationships, avoiding organisms, the P for avoiding pollution or pollutants, and that can even include processed foods and artificial sweeteners as pollutants, and
Yes.
the E for our emotions, and
Mhm.
that's that depression piece, and that E for life experience, and that's maybe engaging in different ways of thinking about how to do things based on new experiences. When you think about that nest and rope, I know you're working on various aspects of it already. Anything that you want to give a little extra attention moving forward?
Um, Again, just more so, being a little bit more consistent with consistent with the diet and planning a little better, and yeah, being a lot more consistent with the diet.
That's well, I hope we can help you. I guess when
Yes.
we get our recipe
Mhm.
thing going with some meal plans, I'm hoping to
Yes.
have meal plans that'll at least give people a tool that they can say, okay, maybe I can learn a couple of these recipes and then just make that part of my routine.
Exactly.
Cook in
Yeah.
volume, cook for 2 or 3 days, never cook for one day. Uh, you cook 2 or 3 times a week. Some people particularly on a Memorial Day or sorry, Labor Day weekend, they'll cook enough meat for the whole week, and that's okay. That's what my mom's doing today.
Yeah.
They're cooking
Mhm.
enough meat for the whole week. So I think those are practical tips that can be applied. And I guess we'll wrap up with that. And I really want to thank you for being here today and really just providing hope for people who suffer from those particular conditions. And when we get to our YouTube, Facebook Live, we'll talk about metabolic syndrome, and they'll see additional medical conditions that are part of this whole syndrome. So I want to just thank you for that, and I hope somebody listening really had a chance to grow. So thank you. And any final thoughts before I make my concluding statements?
No, I just wanted to thank you for you just giving me the opportunity to, help as best as I can, and hopefully I
Yeah.
can someone.
Yeah. Well, you are a nurse, by the way, so you're supposed to be.
Yeah,
This is your calling, and I
it
appreciate
is.
that.
It actually is. I do this every day.
Every day saving lives, and what we're so lucky to pay our bills by helping people. It's just a
Yes.
crazy thing. So thank God for that. So today was a fun day, guys. Today we learned that if we don't address the root cause of disease, we may never heal from disease. And I think the example I want you to remember is that balloon example and heartburn. I think that's an easy thing to remember, and how if you squeeze on that balloon from the belly fat, you may have problems. And Monique, in only 9 months or so, certainly less than a year, has been able to reverse many of the medical conditions she's suffered from, mainly with diet. Rather, it's when you eat or how you eat, what you eat. She did low carb and intermittent fasting, and of course, she's doing her exercise. And she didn't say she was, doing a marathon. She just said she's been walking. So for those, you don't have to kill yourself, you know? You agree, Monique?
Yes, I definitely agree.
Yeah, you don't have to kill yourself. So that's what's cool
And,
about this. So,
a little walking
you know,
and stretching, that's it.
yeah, stretch, walk and stretch. And I'm telling you, it works, guys. So we all need to work towards changing our health system where we focus on helping people identify why they're sick and then helping them to fix that. Patients need to be educated and motivated and coached to help them achieve their goals. And you never give up on people, because Monique has shown me through this conversation that she heard me, but she wasn't ready. And now she finally got her light bulb moment, and now she's doing wonderful things. So I only ask that everybody listening continue to walk alongside me and Monique as we all work to inspire others on a journey, as we all work to achieve optimal health. So as we hear our little furry friend barking in the background, I want to ask you guys to stay encouraged, continue to love and support each other, and definitely continue to protect your nest. You've been listening to Protecting Your Nest with Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com.